All right, the next lesson in Algebra 2 is called unit circle, the tangent function. So here's the unit circle from the last lesson. When everything filled out, you have the degrees filled out, you have the radians filled out, you have the x and y coordinates filled out. So just to recall from the previous lesson, recall that the x values of each point on the unit circle represent the cosine values. Okay, they represent cosine. And recall that the y values of each point on the unit circle represent the sine values, so sine. Just remember, x, y, x comes first in the alphabet, then y, and c comes before s, so cosine, sine. And this is new, the tangent function. The tangent function is represented by the ratio of sine over cosine. In other words, y over x. Okay? Tangent. Sine over cosine. In other words, y over x. Okay? So, example 1. And the only example we're going to do today, but it has 6 parts. Okay? Use the unit circle to find the exact value of each tangent function. So we have to do tangent of 45 degrees, okay? So that means we're going to go to 45 degrees, and we're going to do sine over cosine. In other words, y over x, okay? So y over x, sine over cosine. So it's going to equal square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2. And you should know that right away. Anything over itself equals 1. So ideally this will be done without a calculator, okay? But you could always use a calculator for that one, because that one comes out to a nice number. As long as you're in degree mode, tangent of 45 degrees equals 1. But you want to be able to do these without a calculator. Next one, tangent of 60. So we're going to go to 60 degrees, and we're going to do sine over cosine, okay? So 60 degrees right here. Sine, square root of 3 over 2, over cosine, 1/2. Okay? Square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Change that to multiplication by the reciprocal. So square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. When you multiply those, the 2's divide out, and all you're left with is the square root of 3. Now you need to give exact answers for these, okay? Exact. So suppose you did tangent of 60 on your calculator. You're likely going to get a decimal, and we don't want a decimal, we want an exact answer, but just in case you want to double check, the answer we got was exactly the same. Part C, do tangent of pi. Okay, so let's go to pi, and we're going to do sine over cosine, okay? Sine over cosine, in other words, y over x. So 0 over negative 1. Whenever you have a fraction with 0 in the numerator, that means it equals 0. Okay, now let's do tangent of 5 pi over 6. So this one's going to be hard, okay? Tangent of 5 pi over 6. 5 pi over 6. Tangent means sine over cosine. So 1/2 over negative square root of 3 over 2. Change that to multiplication by the reciprocal. The 2's multiply out, and what we have left is we have negative 1 over square root of 3. Now remember, you cannot have a square root in the denominator. So what we do is we rationalize. We have to multiply by this over itself. Okay? Whenever you have a square root in the denominator, you must get rid of that by multiplying by whatever it is over itself. So in this case, I multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3. So my numerator will be, well, I'm going to have negative. Numerator will be square root of 3. The denominator will be just 3, because the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is just 3. Part E, tangent of negative 45 degrees. This is the same as if you add 360 and get its coterminal angle, negative 45 plus 360, you get the coterminal angle of 315 degrees. So negative 45 is the same as 315. So we'll go to 315 on the unit circle, and we'll do that. Tangent of 315. There's 315. Tangent means sine over cosine, so sine over cosine. Negative square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2. Okay? And you should be able to do that right away. That is clearly negative 1. The other way you could think about that is if you have negative 45 degrees, you could just go clockwise from 0, clockwise 45 degrees, if you don't feel like adding 360. And finally, part F, tangent of negative 60 degrees. So I'm just going to add 60 to get the coterminal angle to that. Okay, I'll do negative 60 plus 360 to get the coterminal angle of 300 degrees, which is on the unit circle, so I'll work off of that. So this equals tangent 300 degrees. Let's look that up on the unit circle. 300 degrees is right there. Tangent is sine over cosine, in other words, y over x. So this over that. Okay. Negative square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Let's change that to multiplication by the reciprocal. So negative square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. The 2's multiply out, and we have, oh, that's it. All we have left over is negative square root of 3. I thought that was going to be a little more difficult. The 2's divide out, and there's nothing left but negative square root of 3. Okay. So, again, you really want to make sure you have the unit circle memorized. Okay. You really do need to have that memorized. So, that's the end of the unit. We spent a lot of time memorizing this. In the first lesson, we did the degrees and the radians, and the previous lesson, we did sine and cosine, so memorize all the coordinates. So the key things you have to know, just to recap, because this was a very short lesson, is all the x values represent cosine. Okay? All the y values represent the sine. Okay? And again, that's easy to memorize because the alphabet goes X, Y, and C comes before S in the alphabet. Okay, so that was the last lesson. In this lesson, we just did tangent. Okay, we did tangent. Tangent, remember, equals sine over cosine. Okay, tangent equals sine over cosine. People mess that up sometimes, but no, just be careful. It's sine over cosine. So sine is your Y, cosine is your X. So you can also think about tangent as being y over x, okay? And Just be careful. Sometimes when you simplify, you may have to rationalize, as we did in one of the examples today. Okay, well, that's the end of that lesson. It was called the unit circle, the tangent function.